Feeling stuck with manual processes that stifles your church's growth? Imagine if you could have access to a transformative system that can streamline guest experiences and free up your church members' valuable time for what matters most: ministry, fellowship, and growth. Yes, it's possible for you to transform your church's operation with the impact of a modern system like the church guest management system. All right, let's check out a few demonstrations of the church guest management system and how it can help you streamline guest onboarding, capture valuable engagement insights, and provide seamless workflow automations. For the first demonstration, let's take a look at the seamless guest onboarding process. This is the guest onboarding form. This form would normally be hosted on your church's website. So as you see, there are a number of entries that we would ask the guests and our visitors to complete. So let's walk through that process right quick. I'll start with a first and last name. I'll next supply an email. Next, we'll make up a phone number. We'll answer the question yes in terms of this being our first time. And since we're not sure what we'd like to do, we just want to reach out to someone, we'll select undecided as the next step. Make sure to remember this name because this will become important in the next step as we look at the journey process for this guest or visitor. And next, all we do is hit submit at the bottom. Now, let's take a quick tour of the system user interface. So we'll first start with a login screen. This would normally be hosted on your church's website. Every system user will require credentials. So I will start with mine, which is my email, and then a password. And upon sign in, you're greeted with the home screen. And all of this is 100% customizable. So any of this can be changed. None of this is canned. We have a number of journeys. All of these journeys can be customized or changed or modified to meet your use case or your need. But for now, let's start with first time guest. And does anyone remember the name of the guest that I use on the onboarding form? And just for a hint, that guest is right here. So this is our first stage, and all of this again is customizable. First stage, second stage, third stage, fourth stage. We call it attempted, reach, connected. There's also search capability if you need to search for someone. So let's search for Janet. And again, if there are multiple Janets, the search would return back all the Janets that are listed. So let's zero in or drill into this particular guest. And we'll see that there is a workflow and we see that there is a next step. Undecided is the next step that this particular guest used when I did the onboarding process. At the bottom, you will also see interactions. So interactions are really just history of engagements that we can use for analytics at a later point in time. So let's add an interaction. So let's imagine that we reached out to this guest via text and there was no response. So I've added that interaction. We see the guest name, we see the interaction, we see the type, we see my name as the person, and we see a date. Now, because we've made an attempt, we'd like to move this guest into a different stage. So instead of being in stage one, we're going to move them to a first time guest attempted. So as soon as I click update, automatically this guest is now moved from the first stage into first time guest attempted. Okay, so now let's walk through this again. And now let's imagine that we've had another interaction. So we've met with the guest. We had a phone call. So I will add another interaction, and we can see the latest interaction is on top always. And now we'll progress this guest through the next stage. So since we've attempted, now we've reached. So if we go and look at the first time guest portal once again, we see that this guest is now in the first time guest reached stage. And finally, we'll hand this guest off to another ministry team. So we've had another conversation with this guest, and they've indicated that they'd like to become a member of a life group or a small group. It's another phone call, so I'll just add that interaction. And again, the most recent interaction is always on top. Met with this guest. They would like to join a life group. Well, it was a phone call assigned by me, and here's the date. And finally, what we do is we change the workflow status. And we'll change it to connected. And we'll change undecided because we now know that they want to go to a life group. So now when we look at first time guest again, now this guest is in the connected stage. Also, if we look at life group, this guest is now in the first stage of the life group engagement. So now a life group team member connects, logs in, and the good thing is they've got all of the history. So whenever someone picks up the next step of an engagement with the guest or volunteer, that history of interaction engagement follows. So they've had a conversation with the guest. So met with the guest. It was a phone call, and they're going to assign them to a life group. Or let's just say that they've reached the guest. So we'll change this to life group reached. Click update. If we go back to life group, we now see that this guest has moved from the first stage into the life group reach stage. Okay, all automatic. And if we look back at first time guest, that guest is no longer under the connected. The reason we've removed him from connected or removed this guest from connected is it signifies a complete handoff to another ministry team. So if we go back to life group and we can follow the same process. So again, interaction history remains. We'll add one final interaction. We'll say met with guest again. And say they're assigned to life group. This was a phone call. Click add. And again, the most recent interaction is always on top. And we'll change the stage again from life group reached to life group assigned. And as we go back into life group, we see that that guest or visitor has been journeyed from the connected stage through reached all the way through assigned to a life group. All right, that's a wrap for this video. When you are ready to transform your church's guest experience with streamlined onboarding, valuable engagement insights, seamless workflow automation, and a simple, intuitive user interface, we welcome you to join us on this journey. Visit our website to request access. Remember to hit the subscribe button for more videos and insights.